Okay, so we're going to work back in our sketchbook again. So just to go back, we've talked about the elements of art. We've gone over line, we went over shape, and now we're going to hit value. So what is value when you're talking about art? I could be talking about how much something is worth, but with this, it's different. It's a different kind of value. Value is really, I'll put a definition right in here. And remember, you follow along in your sketchbook. You do exactly what I do in your sketchbook. So value is how light or how dark an object, which could be in an artwork, an art object or an image, is. It's how light or how dark. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use our pencil and we're going to make a value scale. And so in order to do that, we'll start here and go as light as we possibly can and make little steps to how as dark as we possibly can. So the first one should stay white because you can't get any lighter than that. But the second one, what I want to do is hold my pencil back here by the eraser and just kind of lightly, just barely pressing down at all, go back and forth over that shape. So you can see just a little bit of value right there, getting a little bit darker. This one I'm gonna inch up a little bit on my pencil and just kind of go back and forth. I'm trying to fill it in solidly, but I'm doing it lightly also. I'm not pressing down very hard because I want to have a step darker. You need to be able to tell this one from this one, this one from this one. So just kind of lightly go over that. I'm getting out of the lines, but that's okay. I can go back and clean that up with my pencil and my eraser in just a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to get a little bit darker, pressing down. You know, I'm pressing down pretty good, but I'm not going as hard as I possibly can. I could go a lot harder than that. So filling that in, trying to stay solid as best I can, trying to fill in some of these little white spaces that we'll clean that up again in just a little bit. And then this one, you need to go as dark as you can. Really press down this time, and you can see the more pressure that you put down, the darker it's gonna get, the darker the value is gonna be, okay? So here we can see some equal steps. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna clean it up. We're gonna use this. This is a blending stump. You should have this in your bag. And all it is it's paper. It's paper that's been wound around really tightly and the ends have been sanded down to a point. Okay, so you're gonna take this and you're going to rub your paper with it. You can see it's at an angle, so you're gonna have to get it so that that edge, that pointed edge, that whole edge is flat to the paper right here. So I'm gonna work in little circles. You'll notice as you do that, it does get a little bit darker, and what's happening is you're filling in all of those little white areas, those little spaces that you may have missed before. I'm gonna go to the next one and rub those in so that now you can really get a solid value. It's funny, you can see my thumb from my contour drawing on the page before. Okay, and then finally the last one will fill in solidly. Okay, after I've done that, now I can go back with my eraser and clean up those edges so that it's nice and neat. Okay. And up here. So that's a value scale. It's good practice. And we're going to be using this a lot in our next project. Okay. So when you look at your value scale, this area over here that's really light is also known as high key. Those are your really light values. Over here where it's really dark, you'll call that low key. Okay? So you've got your value scale, lights and darks, high key, low key, and what you really need to know when dealing with value and you're trying to make something look like it's coming out and it's 3D, you really need to know contrast. And what I'm talking about here is the difference between the lights and darks. And I'll show you an example of that in just a minute. Okay, so we're done with this page. Let's flip to the next page. And I want to talk about tone. Tone is a type of value. And really tone, if we're going to put a definition, let's say tone is the degree, degree, there we go, of lightness and darkness. Lightness and darkness of an area. When drawing a realistic object. And let me backtrack a little bit. When you are drawing something and you're trying to make it look realistic, in the art world we call that rendering, R-E-N-D-I-N-G. So drawing or rendering a realistic object, but it doesn't have to be realistic. So I'm going to say, or creating, kind of running out of room there, or creating an abstract composition. And remember, composition, we talked about before, that is basically your overall design. So I'm going to put that in parentheses. Okay, that's a lot. And we're going to work on tone and value in this little exercise. I'll also talk about tone when we work in color later on. But right now, what we're going to do is a tonal drawing exercise, which is this. And so you'll need just your pencil eraser and blending stump. And we're just going to practice blending values. On the value scale, we did solid blocks, but now what we need to do is kind of fade in and out. So here, darkest to lightest, and then back to dark. So you're just going to copy what you see here onto this next square. So I'm going to start out pretty dark. Okay, now I'm going to lighten up. And remember, when I use my blending stump, it does get darker. So I'm going to work a little bit lighter than I think this is. I'm going to leave that blank, come over here, and then darken that. Okay, now I'm going to use my blending stump to smooth that out. See how much smoother that looks? I'm going to kind of leave this area, come back and really press down over here. Now I can go back and erase everywhere where I got out of the lines. I can erase down the middle if I accidentally kind of blended that in a little bit. This looks like it needs to lighten up, so I'm going to lighten it with my eraser and then go back, because I've already got graphite on here. So I'm going to use this to rub onto my paper a little bit just to kind of blend that in. Okay, so get it as close as you can. Clean it up. And then we're going to move on to the next one. So this one, you'll see the top goes from dark to light, and then this one goes from light to dark, so that you have contrast right here. If you look at it, you know, these areas really stand out because you have a really dark next to a really light. Right here it blends together because they're very much the same. So we're going to start by filling this corner in, and watch, I'm going to do this one a little bit differently. Filling that corner in, and I'm going to fill this corner in, because those are my darkest areas. I'm going to try to do this a little bit differently. Instead of using my pencil to blend this out, I'm going to use what's already on my graphite, or my my blending stump. So I'll start here, and then look, if I kind of lightly work in little circles, I can blend that out and then kind of fade out around here and just leave this blank. I'm going to try to do the same thing on the other side, starting in the darkest area, and I'm kind of just pushing that graphite onto the paper with my blending stump. Okay, then I can go back with my eraser and clean up my edges. And all of this is practice for our next project. We are going to be making an abstract composition that I'll talk about in just a couple of days. This one, okay, so this outside shape starts out really dark. So I'm gonna get this as dark as I can. And I liked the way this blended out, so I'm gonna do that again. Instead of going all the way across like I did with the first one, I think that came out a lot smoother. So I'm just going to darken this area. And then from there, I can use my blending stump to smooth that out. Blend out the little white areas that I missed. And I'm going to just fade this out just by using my blending stump. Okay. I can go back with my eraser, clean up my edges. Okay, and then I can do my next one. I probably could go back and make this a little bit neater. Okay, so this one does the opposite. We start out light and it gets dark over here. So remember, I'm starting with the dark side. So this time I'm gonna start over here. I'm gonna fill that out. And I'm just going to do this side, and I'm going to use my blending stump to blend out the rest. So I need to fill this in first, get all those little white spots, and then just kind of push it across the paper with your blending stump. I can go back and clean up my edges. Okay, go back and kind of, you kind of go back and forth with your blending stump and your eraser and your pencil. Then the last one, start dark on this side. Get those corners really good with your pencil. Okay. And then, oh, I kind of got out there, but that's okay. That's why we have erasers. Okay. Then from here, I'm going to first get those corners really good, get the dark area, and then pull my graphite across that shape a little bit. Okay, so that's pretty good. I mean, I could still go back and clean it up, but you guys get the idea. Okay, last one. We're gonna start with this shape here, dark at the top. So let me just go around the edge. If you want, you could also start in the center and, work your way to the outside. But this time I think I'm going to do this a little differently, because there's always more than one way to do something. I'm going to go ahead and use everything I can with my pencil before I blend. So this is dark down here. Okay, and then it starts to fade out, and then this is dark. So look for your darkest areas and fill those in with your pencil. And then from there, what we'll do is we'll use our blending stump to blend out. This time I'll start in the middle, get the edges really good, and then just lightly pull that graphite just a little bit. I don't even need to go all the way down to the bottom because I want that to blend to white. Now I'm going to do the next shape that comes out. Make sure I get that dark area and fill in all those little white spots. And then blend that out to there. And then finally the very outside. Okay, and then finally the last thing you want to do is you always want to go back and clean anything up. So like I kind of went out a little bit right there. And clean up my edges. Okay, but now we're working with value, lights and darks. And you know, these look very 3D because you have the contrast, the difference between the light and the dark right next to each other, and they make each other stand out. Okay, so that's it for value. Our next project is going to be based on that. We're just going to be using our pencil and our blending stuff.